Thank you for organizing and providing an environment for so many people to share their insights, discoveries, challenges of a life, a large life, a big life, a macrobiotic life. And it's a great opportunity to see you far away and see people all over the world who are sharing the kind of insights and discoveries of what it means to be macrobiotic, what it means to be alive, what it means to be a fully human being in the 21st century. And of course, we're at a particularly challenging time, this time of the pandemic, this time of radical polarization. We all have been studying about duality and yin and yang and good food and bad food and health and illness. How do we challenge ourselves and embrace all of these divisions in the world, including our concepts of health and sickness and of right eating, wrong eating, right living, right actions. I started on this journey a long time ago, and I lived in the Boston Macrobiotic community for somewhere like 40 some years. And I was involved when Erewhon was both a thriving business and also a bankrupt business. I was there when we had dreams of world peace and universal health through simple things like changing our diet and understanding how better to grow and cook our foods. And we all had these dreams of being world leaders and pioneers in changing society from being full of anger and dissent and racial prejudice and pervasive illness. And we were going to make those changes through our changed diet, through our changed business practices, through our shared view of what some have called these universal or unique principles. And here we are. For me, it's over 50 years later, and I'm still waiting, still wondering, still hoping, still dreaming. And I know that I published East-West Journal for 15 years, which was the international publication to introduce and share insights from people all over the world about how their practices, their philosophies, their beliefs, their mental attitudes could in fact harmonize and improve and transform society. We have still great expectations, but it's so far still from our dream and our reality. And we look around and we wonder, like, all these famous teachers are no longer alive, and some of them had the same illnesses of modern society that we were claiming could be corrected by our changed approach, our changed lifestyle, and our simple dietary change. And early on, at least from the Michio Kushi and Herman Ihara schools of macrobiotics, the question came up like, we focus so much on diet. We focus so much on what we eat. We focus so much on how we cook our food, how we prepare our vegetables, what we should and shouldn't eat. But what about how our mind works? What about how we think? What about our attitude about life and the world around us? And the answer that at least the Japanese macrobiotic teachers provided was, if it were possible to change our bodies by changing our minds, why hasn't it happened yet with all this work on psychology and so forth? However, if we can change our minds by changing our diet, by changing our bodies, by changing our blood quality, then we'll have a real revolution. But the problem was, it was an either or. It was either we focus on our diet, we focus on our bodies, or we focus on our mind, we focus on our consciousness. And so that's why I suggested a talk on mindfulness and macrobiotics, or mindful macrobiotics. Because after all, why are you guys here? What are you expecting except for a few hours of entertainment led by our MC, Ganat Rice? What do you want besides some, I don't know if it's a diversion or a focus, if it's a practice or a hope, if it's something that you expect will transform your life, and we all are hoping for transformative experiences in our life. How do we do it by our own awareness? What can we do instead of following the guidebooks, instead of following the recipes? What do we need to do? What can we do right now to bring us into an awareness of who we are, of what we are, and to really make peace with those divisive, contradictory, polarized ideas and ideologies? Good food, bad food. How do we decide what food? Bettina said sea salt. There's a controversy now. Sea salt all has microplastics in it because of all the waste in the ocean. So instead we should have land salt. Land salt is too refined. Where are we going to get our iodine then? Well, we don't have iodized salt. There's so many prescriptions, regimens that paleo, vegan, macrobiotic, keto, vegetarian, we have so many ideas about what to eat. How do we discover what we can, what we need, what's best for us? Becoming aware of the food we eat and how it affects us. Macrobiotics at base was an opportunity for liberation from duality, a way of unifying polarized points of view. We were hoping for freedom, freedom from fear, also freedom from disease, freedom from violence in the world, freedom from all the difficulties that our lives have encountered up until now. And I hope that some of you are finding that. I hope some of you have found that. But I know that as a society, we're far from it and we're still struggling. And we are needing to be grounded in what really works for us and how our minds can affect our bodies as well as our bodies affecting our minds. It's the complementary whole of a real human being. It's not either this way or that way. And so grains, vegetables, meat, sugar, glycemic acid, glycemic indexes, all of these are important factors to discriminate. But how do we actually learn to be mindful of what makes a difference in our life to make us feel whole, healthy, vital? We know we're going to get sick. We know we're going to get well. We know we're going to be tired. We know we're going to be energetic. What are the practices that we can do? What do we need to do in order to really enjoy and accept all these divisions, all these polarities, all these aspects of life? Sometimes it's cold outside and we're aware of the coldness. Sometimes we eat too much salt and we know that we get tight and thirsty. Sometimes We eat too much, sometimes we don't eat enough. Is diet what it is that we want to focus on? How do we embrace the world? How do we really enjoy all varieties of food? Hiroshi Hayashi, the master chef from the Seventh Inn, who was really a master at preparing, presenting, and cooking food, his dream for macrobiotics was that a true human being, as a real human being, he said, we should be able to eat everything and anything. Maybe it's how you prepare it, maybe it's how you chew it, maybe how you appreciate it, maybe how you embrace it, rather than the right food and the wrong food. And so I'd like to suggest that we learn or practice somehow appreciating and embracing all food, all those things that we take in, all political beliefs, all weather patterns, all restaurants, and that we might find some of them don't work for us, and that's an awareness, a mindfulness practice, as opposed to a judgment about that's bad and this is good. That might not work for you, and this might work for you. Caffeinated beverages, sweet desserts, salty chips. What is it that will really make you feel healthy? And what is that health? Is that health being aware of what works for you? Or is that health according to the guidelines and the guidebooks and the recipes? We know so many people, I know in Israel, as well as in America and in Europe, there are very particular belief systems that have been suggested for centuries. Orthodox orientation from religion, philosophies, schools that teach this is the right way. These are the guidelines. These are the rule books to live a whole, pure, healthy, enlightened life. And if that were possible, where is the proof of those people's lives expressing that kind of understanding? So, what is a mindfulness practice of macrobiotics? What are the practices that we can engage in that will give us a sense of wholeness, that will give us a sense of harmony, integration, as opposed to separation and division? I studied with the Macrobiotic teachers, including Herman and Michio and Bill Dufty. I don't know whether he actually ever considered himself a teacher, but he was a journalist, and I worked in journalism for many years, and I was inspired by his willingness to explore the so far unexplored, like Sugar Blues, or his book about Billie Holiday. I studied with some Buddhist teachers as well, and one of the teachers that I studied with, Pema Chodron, she said in her teachings and in her writings, life's work is to wake up, to let the things that enter your life wake you up rather than put you to sleep. The only way to do this is to open, be curious, and develop some sense of sympathy for everything that comes along, to get to know its nature and let it teach you what it will. How do we open up to everything around us? How do we open up to tropical fruit and temperate fruit, unsweetened food, sweetened food? How do we develop an understanding and an awareness and an enjoyment for those things around us, rather than a negative judgment about the right and the wrong, the good and the bad, the supportive and the detrimental, to the healthful. After all, these are all, if yin and yang ultimately is dualistic monism, two sides of one, then the one is embracing both sides. It's not choosing one over the other. It's impossible to choose this instead of that, because this and that is all there is. There is no this and that. It's whole. It's all. It's what is. And we can judge the relativity of it. We can judge how it affects us. And the idea there is, in that judgment, to have understanding, to have awareness, to have a sensation of what is. I was going to take a minute for us to sit quietly with no expectation. Maybe we can still spend 30 seconds with no words. How hard it is to sit still without the TV, without our smartphones, without a book, without a notebook, to sit in meditation, in quiet. My daughter, my youngest daughter, is a school teacher in the Boston Public Schools. And she developed a curriculum for mindfulness training in the elementary schools. And she teaches in the inner city of Boston, and most of her students come out of the projects. And she does this practice at least once a week with her students, to sit quietly for 1 minute, for 60 seconds, without fidgeting, without talking, with your eyes closed and not falling asleep. Can we practice this? 30 seconds, 60 seconds. You've had a full day of information, of words, and now we have a chance to be with yourself. Let's take 60 seconds. And when we sit, just like how you think about preparing your food, how you wash your rice, what kind of knife you use, what kind of pots you use. When we sit, we take care of our body, our breath, and our mind. So if you can, wherever you're sitting, if you sit up straight, notice your breathing. Close your eyes. You can notice your mind. You can notice your thoughts. And you can just be quiet. Okay, now you can become aware of yourself, your sensations around you, your body. Some of you can feel tingling on your feet, coldness, warmth, tastes, aromas that you smell. How much of what we choose to eat comes from our sensations of what we need, of what sustains us, of what nourishes us? What nourishes you? Connections with other people, connections with the farmers who grow your food, connections with the merchants who bring your cookware, your clothing, who built your shelter. Embracing all of the different discursive qualities all around us, the many phenomena all around us. The pandemic. How many of us feel like bacteria and viruses are part of the environment that we need to embrace? Not that we need to get sick, but how much of our sickness comes out of our fear of getting sick, or our arrogance that we can't get sick, and allowing ourselves to get sick and allowing ourselves to be healthy. All these temporal, ephemeral qualities come and pass away. And not to blame the virus or blame the political system or blame the doctors or blame the vaccine or the lack of the vaccine, but to accept that is reality. This is reality. We are living this real life. And we also are distracted by what the Buddhists call samsara, the ephemeral, superficial, temporal qualities that come and pass away, and that we struggle with our attachments to them. We struggle with our attachments to how we want to feel, how we don't want to feel, what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, what they eat, what they shouldn't eat, what our children, our parents, our friends do or don't do. It's so easy to be developing judgment that is critical, that is negative, that is divisive. And it's so enjoyable to develop, to evolve an acceptance, an awareness, an enjoyment. And so I brought an apple. How enjoyable it is to cut a slice of an apple. How about when you eat your rice? How many of you try your rice before it's cooked and chew it? You know, there used to be a diet for some digestive distress where you took a handful of rice several times a day and chewed it for 100 times. And what do you taste when you chew that rice? Raw, uncooked rice. Wheat berries. Chew it and find out what the gluten tastes like. And do you enjoy it? Does it nourish you? Cheese, yogurt, miso soup. How many times do we walk outside barefoot and feel the cold or the heat or the grass or the mud and really embrace these things rather than protect ourselves from them and blame those things around us as the cause of our difficulties, rather than our minds using this modern educational system that we have all learned to develop, where we can discriminate between the right answer and the wrong answer, the right path and the wrong path, the right food and the wrong food, as opposed to developing our own understanding, our own sense of a mindfulness that gets us in touch with who we are and what we enjoy, what nourishes us, and how to enjoy more of that, with the awareness that what comes goes away. All of this is a temporal life that will pass away. And how do we enjoy it in the meantime? What are the practices that we can all share. Eating together, great practice. A ritual that we do 1, 2, 3, or more times a day. And if we can share certain foods that are nourishing us, as opposed to the right food, the good food, the wrong food, we're alive. And we've all eaten so many strange things in our life. And we know people who have eaten this pure diet who are not healthy, not happy, and not alive anymore. None of these foods are going to make us immortal. And they're all going to make us feel good when we can really enjoy them. Cup of tea, cup of coffee, water, friendship, relationships. These are the aspects of our life that I think we want to nourish, we want to expand, we want to evolve, we want to improve and increase as much as we can. Although we also know that the monks who live in caves can also find satisfaction and a mindfulness practice that also nourishes them. So what is it that nourishes you? What are the foods? What are the practices? What are the connections? What are the ways of cooking? Raw food, cooked food, vegan food. How do we expand our awareness to include our environment, and what nourishes our environment while it nourishes us? So there's this environmental ecologic orientation about our diet. And yet when we become judgmental and critical, oh, that food is going to use up too much of our agricultural land, or that product produces too much methane and it destroys the environment. All of these critical judgments, which are exercises of our intellect for sure, also encourage this division, separation, disconnect between us and others, between me and you, between me and the world, between me and equanimity. So what is it that you want out of a macrobiotic life, a macrobiotic diet, a macrobiotic perspective on the world? What is it that you want? What will help you feel whole, connected, healthy, vital? Is it changing your diet? Is it getting more sleep? Is it getting more exercise? Is it finding how to embrace the world with a wholehearted attitude? There's another set of teachings that I'll share these at the end of the talk so that you can do what you want with them. But Pema Chodron also taught 8 practices, aspirations and dedications that are not just about what I need for me, but what we need for us, and how we, as me and you, can join together to really develop a mindful life that's wholehearted and that's really all inclusive. So the 8 points that she makes: I dedicate my life to the welfare of all beings. I dedicate my life to the welfare of all beings. Number 2, may the roots of suffering diminish. May warfare, violence, indifference, neglect, and addiction also diminish. May the roots of suffering diminish. That's the second point. Number 3, may the wisdom and compassion of all beings increase. May the wisdom and compassion of all beings increase. Number 4, may we clearly see the barriers we erect between ourselves and others to be as insubstantial as our dreams. And we can say, may we clearly see the barriers we erect between what we think is good food and bad food to be as insubstantial as our illusions. Number 5, may we continue to appreciate the great perfection of all phenomena. May we continue to appreciate the great perfection of all phenomena. Number 6, may we continue to open our hearts and minds. May we continue to open our hearts and minds, not to be negatively judgmental, but to open ourselves to every possibility. Number 7, may we go to the places that scare us. May we go to the places that scare us. And number 8, may we lead the life of a warrior. May we lead the life of a warrior. And that doesn't mean making war. It can also be a peaceful warrior. It can be a fearless warrior. It can be somebody willing to accept vaccinations or to walk into a nursing home or a hospital without vaccinations, to wear a mask, but to not be judgmental about people who don't wear masks, to eat those foods that nourish us, grains and vegetables and beans and fermented foods, and also not be critical about those people who eat carnivorous diets or ketogenic diets, or however it is. What can we do to really embrace, increase our acceptance, and to be unconditional in our respect and our love and our open-hearted kindness towards all people, all things, all foods, not just those foods that are on the list of good foods, or right foods, or foods for our health and judgment. It's challenging not to have a guidebook. It's hard not to have hard, fast rules that will give us the directions. When I was a kid, I studied that classic Jewish text, the Shulchan Aruch, the set table, the table of rules and regulations that tells us what shoe to put on first in the morning, what side of the bed to get up on. And then Macrobiotics was so great because it gave us very specific foods to eat and foods to avoid. And it really wasn't like, this is the small view and this is the large view. It was, this is the good food and this is the binge food. And what was your problem if you were always binging? What if binging is enjoying our life? There is no binging. There's just enjoying. And I hope that at this point, at some part of our life, we get to the place where we decide what's nourishing, and it's not based on the books. It's based on our own understanding and our awareness and our conscious choice, rather than an external rule. And shame and guilt are not part of our awareness, but curiosity and adventure and fearlessness are our path. I know you've heard a lot of suggestions, I'm sure today as well as in the previous presentations that Ganad has presented, and I embrace them all. And I followed them all at different times. And I probably taught them all. And I'm hopeful now that we can graduate from the cookbook of a healthy diet, a healthy life, an adventurous life, a free life. And if it's free, there's no more guidelines. There may not be any ground either. We might become groundless, and how frightening that might be. And can we enter that place that scares us? Can we take the vaccine, wondering what it'll do? Are we afraid of injecting some weird thing into our bodies? How many of us have tried over the years, from milkshakes when we were kids, or marijuana when we were in college or later, and different kinds of pharmaceuticals and psychedelics, and read books that somebody later might have said those should have been banned books. We enjoyed them, and here we are, alive still. And I hope that we can continue adventuring with fewer restrictions, with fewer fears, and with more of a awareness, we could say a mindfulness of what we need, of who we are, and what gives us satisfaction, happiness, joy, connection. We like to drink tea, whether it's kokicha, or whether it's matcha, or whether it's green tea, or chai, Indian chai. Practice a ritual together. It's an enjoyable way of sharing and connecting. And it's great that we have this opportunity with this digital technology, and we appreciate, again, Ganat's willingness to take her time and give her energy towards allowing us to share together all over the world with something that seems to be nourishing, enjoyable, and hopefully in some ways educational. And it's great to have this ability to connect and to overcome the barriers that separate us. I know there's still barriers here, but that's what I hope we can do with our choice of diet, our lifestyle, that we can get beyond the guidebooks, get beyond the rules, get beyond the fears, get beyond the prescriptions of right, wrong, good, bad. No, it's all good. It's all part of our life. It's all part of the phenomenal world. And this is a particularly adventurous time for us, right? With the pandemic, with the challenges in travel, the challenges of interacting with other people, family, friends. And yet this is the best time of our life. This is our best time of our life. And I hope we can enjoy it and appreciate it. And not be afraid, and not be restrictive. Of course, make decisions based on what you can and can't do. And take a nap when you're tired, and eat when you're hungry. Avoid exposure to things that you feel you're not resistant to. And embrace those things that you might have some resistance to, as a way of adventuring and exploring and discovering who you are and what it's like to be a free human being. So what can we do to develop our mindfulness practice on life? I think meditation on a daily basis is number one. And it could be as essential as eating every day is essential for your life. And if in fact your blood quality is based on your diet, and your diet affects your mind, your blood affects your awareness also affects your blood. And so developing an awareness meditation practice where, again, you're attentive to your body, your breath, and your mind, as well as physical exercise, physical activity, whether it's walking or bicycling or swimming or whatever it is that keeps you active. Some amount of study, some amount of reading, intellectual pursuits to challenge your strongly held points of view. This this book that many of you must have heard of called Mindset, the Open Mindset. You know, what do we need to do to keep our minds open and not have a closed mindset? So developing curiosity about what it's like to sit quietly for 30 minutes, what it's like to chew 100 times, what it's like to read a book on a topic that was not your main interest, and how do you feel, and what is their discoveries about yourself and your connection to the world. So that's about it. I don't know what else I can encourage, except that next time we get together, maybe we can all share our discoveries about what it means to be on your own path for discovering what macrobiotics means to you, what you've discovered in your practice that's maybe similar to or contrary to what the guidebooks have told you, what the teachers have told you, what the years of experience. You know, we all die. Michikushi had cancer twice. His wife and his daughter died of cancer. Like, we're not free of it. And nothing that we can do with strictest following of anything is going to make us free of any illness. And it's certainly not going to make us immortal. Everything comes and passes away. And I hope that we can appreciate all of the changes in our life as we grow and discover. Any comments or questions, Ganat, or anyone else?
I actually do have a question. One of Pema Chodron's, I think number 7 or so, may we go to places that scare us. That's scary.
Yeah. She wrote that book, The Places That Scare You. And she wrote that book right before it went to press, right before 9/11. And she insisted on that title. We also felt that that title at Shambhala Publications, their publisher, there was a scary title, and it was encouraging people to approach something that you had no way that you were going to approach it. But after she wrote her books, she never went on tour. Instead, she would go into a retreat, solitary retreat. And she went on retreat on the end of August. And 9/11 was, of course, the 11th of September. She said, don't get me out of retreat unless Oprah wants me on her show, because Oprah had made some interest to have Pema as a guest on her show. And there was an article about her that happened, but she wasn't on the show at that time. But Pema went on retreat at her retreat center in Crestone, Colorado. And then 9/11 happened. And that book became a bestseller because it was exactly what people wanted to know after 9/11. Fear, not just in the United States, but throughout the world, but specifically in the United States. No one in our life had ever attacked us like what happened. And people were afraid. They were afraid to fly, like the pandemic. And she found out about it at the end of December when she came out of retreat. Not only that 9/11 had happened, but that the book had become a bestseller. It was selling out. We couldn't keep it in print. And it's not necessarily that you should go into a burning house, that you should walk into a hospital where people are dying from the coronavirus. It's more to be aware of the fears and the restrictions that we put on ourselves to open ourselves to those things that are frightening, even in our minds, just to be open and curious and accepting. Some people are afraid of Coca-Cola, the places that scare us. All of those things put a barrier between me and you, between you and the world. And so being willing to be a warrior to walk into, in your mind itself, those places that are scary, that is really what she was talking about. Is that?
Yeah, a lot to, I liked your idea about these forum classes are to provide nourishment. because that's,
Yeah.
I like that word of all the ideas. That's good. Or Nourishkeit. I don't know.
Nourishkeit.
We do have a question. What are your thoughts about macrobiotic communities? From Christian, so I'm not sure if he wants to expand.
You want to ask it more, Christian?
No, I thought I heard what you said, and I have my own mind about this question, but I'm interested in your viewpoint about that, what sometimes is going on, people trying to stay as a group, or like in the 70s in the beginning, when macrobiotic became popular. And
I think that
why it didn't work out.
I think like religion and a lot of belief systems, political systems, I guess, are another example. There are certain people who really gravitate to very basic tenet or principle or precept, you know, communism, you know, like, is it really for all of us, or is it so that somebody can manipulate all of us? And there becomes these different factions. And there are so many over the, I don't know, 60, 70 years of macrobiotics in Europe and maybe in Asia as well. Whew, like Aikido was another one where there was this, you know, the way of love, Aikido. And what came out of it were the students of Ueshiba all developed different factions in different parts of Japan and fought against each other. There were those macrobiotic teachers who were certified as Kushi Institute certified, and then there were the other ones who were the pioneers who didn't want to be certified. And so the community itself didn't have the cohesion that had been the dream, had been the image. Instead, it was belief systems created like divisions. And that's my point about how can we knock down the walls, dissolve the beliefs, open up to all the variations of ideologies and ideologies and diets and food. And then we find that we can share more with people, even if they've never eaten brown rice before, even if they've never heard of macrobiotics or the unifying principle. And I don't know if it's unifying principle or unique principle. I know you called it the unique principle, and he always called it the UP. So I don't know. UP sounds like something that a macrobiotic people might teach you about digestive systems and elimination systems. But in any case,
Principe unique.
Unique.
French, yeah, works unique principle.
Yeah, it could be unique. In any case, I feel that we find friends on all levels, from all religions, political beliefs. It's hard right now. The polarization in politics has made us really hard to open the gate between this way and that way, the blue state and the red state in the United States. But dream of this utopian community, one world peace. Whew, that's another one of these polarizing views that war is bad, peace is good, and we'll only eliminate. But I did say one of Pema's teachings was to overcome our divisions and our prejudices and our racist views. So truly harmonizing, integrating. I don't know how we can do it, though, with people who have the same belief system, because those beliefs suddenly become minor slices of this. I'm a Herman Hara student. I'm a Michio Kushi student. No, I studied with George Osawa. No, George Osawa's, there's a whole controversy now on Facebook. George Osawa was influenced by Mao, and his whole view of the UP comes from Lenin and Stalinistic viewpoints. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, it's another opportunity to divide us rather than to share some common ground and open-hearted practice.
Yeah, I really appreciate your idea of the brave and the peaceful warrior who also goes his way alone into the society and try to look where he is needed or where he can do something better than to form a closed society, a group that will be seen as enemies from outside. That I don't think it wasn't a good idea, especially in the 70s. I mean,
yeah.
we all tried that. And
Dualism in all of its forms. Dualism about what's good and what's bad, what's the good food, what's the bad food, what's a good person, what's a bad person, what's a right belief, what's a wrong belief. It's part of our human nature. And how do we say this is, you could say unique principle, but I would also like to say, what can we do to unify principles around some common thread, some common ground, so that we can actually have a unified and unifying experience, an all-embracive, fearless, open-hearted, kindness towards each other, kindness towards all foods, all peoples,
yeah,
whether they're in this group or not, whether they're on this forum or not.
Amen.
yeah. Thank you very much for your.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lenny.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.